Hello folks, so it's been a few days since we last touched on Wuchang. In the previous update video, I did say I was letting the drama die down a little bit before returning, mostly because I didn't want to be the guy who milks it for all it's worth, and because I actually quite like Wuchang, and didn't want to accidentally throw further fuel on the fire. That said, however, we will do a quick recap for those who are unaware or not totally up to speed. Wuchang is developed by Lindsay and published by 505 Games. Lindsay were founded sometime in 2016, having only ever created one unremarkable VR game prior to Wuchang's release, which was titled AD 2047 and released in 2021. Wuchang was also first announced sometime in 2021, where it soon after acquired the publishing of 505 Games. Since then, it's seemingly transformed in terms of both aesthetic and gameplay mechanics, with the game being shifted from Unreal Engine 4 over to Unreal Engine 5 at some point mid-development, with this being announced early 2025. This raised a few red flags given Unreal Engine 5's track record in terms of performance, and sure as anything, come release in July 2025, the game did indeed suffer from a range of both performance and technical issues. This caused a wealth of backlash, with the game being review bombed into oblivion, with many players reporting issues that ranged from borderline to outright unplayable. This resulted in the game sitting at as low as a measly 34% positive reviews on Steam, and ultimately has done a lot of invisible damage to the game's success since launch, with the game selling well over 1 million copies despite these issues, but it certainly could have done higher numbers had it have not been surrounded by the negativity. On the first day of launch, Lindsay and 505 Games issued a statement apologising for the issues and promising to rectify things immediately. Then within the first few days, quite a few issues were fixed, and within the first few weeks, most major issues had been seen to. Lindsay have stated that Steam Deluxe players will be compensated for weapons, 4 armor sets and 3 headpieces, and with all players on all platforms receiving just the 3 headpieces, with these expected to be given out at some point in the coming months. And overall, in the 5 weeks since launch, things have begun to look and perform a lot better, with the general consensus and review score for Wuchang vastly improving, and the game now sitting at 51% positive reviews. However, during these 5 weeks, some additional changes were implemented into the game which were not disclosed within the patch notes, and all of these changes almost exclusively impacted the game's narrative, NPCs, and bosses. Basically, all Ming forces within the game could no longer be attacked, and instead would in fact attack enemies and help you, and any Ming bosses would no longer be defeated after defeating them, and would instead become NPCs with very little dialogue. This has resulted in some of the game's major themes, narratives, and stories being impacted, mostly either diluting them or having them no longer make much sense, which overall has not gone over well with some of the player base. Now, to answer the question of why this happened, I will have to summarise massively to keep things short, but essentially Wuchang takes place in a fictionalised version of the late Ming Dynasty. During this period, the Han citizens, aka the Ming Dynasty, had been invaded by the Manchurians, aka the Qing Dynasty, and the Qing Dynasty was the last dynasty to ever exist within China. While the Manchurians are not featured within Wuchang at all, however, the Ming Dynasty very much is, and thus the game has received backlash from a portion of the Chinese population, accusing it of essentially being racist towards Han citizens. This has then caused the Chinese government to get involved, and that has led to the changes we now see. The accusation ultimately being that Lindsay have protected Manchurians by not featuring them at all, and have offended Han citizens due to having their forces and actual historical figures die by Wuchang's hand in the game. Now, it goes much deeper than this, and that is a very brief summary of the situation, but we won't be dragging it out here, as I have done a few times already, and don't fancy doing so again. Anyway, following all of this, many players began to post to both the official and unofficial Wuchang Reddit pages, reporting on the undisclosed changes to the game's story and enemies. And then this was promptly followed by many posts being deleted entirely on the official Wuchang subreddit, which is supposedly ran by either Lindsay or 505 Games. Now, since these posts were deleted, within the weeks the official Reddit had established a mega thread for all discussions surrounding the changes to both story and performance, and things have seemingly quietened down. However, there have still been numerous posts and even accounts being banned from the sub entirely, with me showing last week that if you even so much as visit or interact with anything not safe for work on Reddit, and then interact with the official Wuchang subreddit in any way, then it's likely the mods will take a look at your profile and judge whether or not you're even allowed to be there. It is very much their space and they can do what they want with it, but all this is really doing is growing and strengthening bad relations between them and their fans. Now, since all of this, things have quietened down again. We have reports floating around about a range of issues affecting players since the latest patch. However, for the most part, things do seem to be in a vastly better place than they ever have been, and that does essentially bring us right up to today. So our last patch was a week ago, and we don't have much indication as to when we can expect another. It'll likely be within the coming weeks. However, we can't say as to how big it's going to be. We have a rough outline of what's to come, with the previous mentioned compensation likely arriving within the next few updates. And we also have the previously mentioned issues that are likely being ironed out as we speak. Beyond this, your guess is as good as mine. It would be nice to see some DLC on the horizon, as a handful of games have managed to push out additional content within the months following launch this year, and it would obviously be very nice to see that with Wuchang. However, we have not had any such announcements, and beyond the devs addressing the game's launch and performance issues, they haven't mentioned much else at all. So that does very much leave us waiting for the next announcement or update, which will likely be within the next week or so, but we've no idea what that update or any future updates will entail beyond performance repair, quality of life, and compensation. But as always, do stay tuned with the channel, as we will be covering all things Wuchang just as soon as there's something new to cover. Outside of Wuchang, we are of course including Hell Is Us to the channel, with paid early access starting on the 1st of September and launch being the 4th of September instead. And I was fortunate enough to bag myself a review copy just a few days ago and have been getting stuck in since. I'm working on a range of videos to be thrown out within the first few weeks, ranging from a review to guides, news videos, and possibly even walkthroughs, so things may be quiet on the channel for the next few days. However, come September, we will very much be starting things off with a big bang. That brings me to the next development, which would be Mistfall Hunter had its beta free announcement no longer than a week ago, and since the announcement, the beta has been confirmed for the 16th of September. This is exclusively for PC only, however the game will also be coming to Xbox Series S and X upon launch, possibly even getting a beta between now and then. I should be able to secure at least 10 additional keys for the beta, so I will be arranging a way of giving these out within the near future, mostly for anyone who wasn't able to get in and would really like to play, so do stay tuned for that. And this does of course mean I will be throwing out some Mistfall Hunter videos closer to the 16th, and once the beta has come and gone, I'll have a plethora of footage for future videos between now and launch. And then, as the few final developments, we have Where Winds Meet releasing on November 14th, which I will be attempting to acquire early access and will be covering a lot closer to launch regardless, as I still have some footage from the closed beta a month or so ago. And then we have the Valor Mortis playtest coming sometime in the very near future, which I will be covering more once a date has been announced, and then of course following the actual playtest. So plenty of big additions to the channel, and we're starting to become big enough to use the platform for things like early access, which will only help with overall growth and prosperity. So as busy as the previous few weeks and coming months will be for me, it is also very exciting. I'll do my best to flag quiet sections as and when I see them coming, but we are about to come out of this quiet patch, and I've got Hell Is Us, Mistfall Hunter, Valor Mortis, and Where Winds Meet all coming to the channel to various different degrees, and all in that order. Anyway, that would be it for this one, folks. I do, of course, have a range of guides and news videos on the channel already, so do feel free to stop on by and check things out. Otherwise, thanks for watching, folks, and until next time, peace.